Hello and welcome to Lightways at Life Astrologer with me, Anna Isabel. And today I have Gill Dorren with me. Jill is the current Vice President of the Astrological Lodge of London.
Yeah.
And well, she has given a fabulous series of talks entitled The Cosmos and Astrology. Hello, Jill.
Hello, Anna. Thank you for having me.
It's a joy because, I mean, the amount of research you've done into, well, fairly unknown aspects of
Mm.
astronomy and linking them to astrology is it's really fascinating. And I think it's just really worth exploring because this is, dare I say it, cutting edge astrology.
Wow. Okay.
From the point of view that, I mean, it's these are not words that we normally use with astrology, where we have a body of knowledge that has been built over many centuries.
Mm.
And but astronomy has not stood still, and we've discovered other aspects of our galaxy
Universe.
universe.
Yes.
Um, so the question does beg to be asked, what does that mean? So we have a nice body of work that's building up around the trans-Neptunian objects and
Yes.
asteroids. So it's really great because you've been looking at, um, well, black holes. So,
Yes. Mm.
Jill, tell us, what, how are we linking black holes to astrology?
Well, that's a good question. I think where I come from is the fact that ever since we started discovering these vast, that ever since 1924, when Edwin Hubble, whose centenary we'll be celebrating this year, discovered that, our galaxy wasn't the only galaxy in the universe. There were trillions of galaxies out there. I always ask myself, what does that mean for astrology? And and for some obscure reason I still kind of can't fathom out, is I've always been fascinated by black holes. I think it's because it's one of the last mysteries of the universe. And to think that, every galaxy or most of the galaxies they know in the universe has a black hole at its very center does mean something to the galaxy that they actually are in the center of. And I just thought, well, what does that mean for astrology? What symbolism can we make out of that with astrology? And when you think that the black hole at the center of our galaxy lies at 28 degrees Sagittarius, between Scorpio and Sagittarius, and it's that time of year of growth and rebirth, I thought, well, let's dance with this. Let's waltz with this a little bit to see what I can get out of that. And I looked at the work of Rob Chang, who's done work with black holes, and I come across another gentleman called Philip Sedgwick online, and he had done work on black holes. And I just thought, well, okay, let's just see what I get out of this. And what I did was I tried to link it with the myths that are attached to Sagittarius and to Scorpio and all that area of the sky, because I think myths, especially Babylonian myths, can bring in, like with their stories and their human stories, bring in really the symbolism that I was looking for within the black holes themselves, if you can understand what I'm trying to say. So I just tried to dance with it and see what symbolism I could find within the black holes themselves, mainly because they are one of the last mysteries. Well, they're one of the mysteries of the universe at the moment, and they fascinate me from that perspective. And the myths of discovery all around them, with Sagittarius, with Scorpio, and that I just wanted to see what they could mean to astrology. If you
It
get
is a
my drift.
Yes, of course. And I think it is interesting that you think of the black hole and it's the mystery, it's the unknown, but it's
Mm.
also the idea of things being sucked into it and
Yeah.
and not. not coming out. So it feels like a threshold of some kind. And
Yes,
and so this is the realm of Scorpio in a sense, because this is and at this time of year, that we should be talking about this at this time of year, the time where traditionally it's the veil between the two worlds. So
yes,
it's going through that into another dimension, perhaps. That's a very interesting connection,
mm,
actually, between
yes,
the two. And it always feels like with Sagittarius, although everything is still dying, so to speak, because the leaves are still falling and so on, and we're really heading for that winter point. As we're heading for that winter point, we're also heading for the return of the sun. So
yes.
by the time we end Sagittarius, the sun's returning. So I think it's a very interesting connection. And the fact that you've highlighted, that there is a black hole that exists within Sagittarius. Tell us about that.
In
Yeah.
what I found.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good question. I think um, I've always been I've always been fascinated by yeah, I suppose it's because I got Scorpio rising. So I dark things, unknown things, unknowable things have always fascinated me. And I started reading about them, and the fact that I think what intrigues me is, yes, when you go over the threshold, when you go through the event horizon, that is unknowable at the moment in science, and there's lots and lots of mysteries. And one of the mysteries, which a famous scientist called Matthew Kiku once stated in a documentary, is that all the mass that go with a black hole once you cross the event horizon all goes to this point called infinity. And scientists do not like infinity. But myself as an astrologer, and all into the symbolism and history and tradition of astrology, I don't mind the concept of infinity. So I kind of, that's what intrigues me about black holes, that it could be leading to this point, this singularity, which also reflects what happened at the beginning of time, at the Big Bang Theory. So there's a resonance there with my interest in the Big Bang Theory, because I'm just as passionate about finding everything out I can on the scientific fronts about the Big Bang and this singularity at the middle of a black hole. And this point of infinity, which although scientists allegedly don't like, I'm intrigued by, and I think astrology is intrigued by.
But everything in nature and astrology is about cycles.
Yes,
And and that in itself is a form of infinity, because the cycle ends and starts again, ends and starts again. And
yes,
the very concept of reincarnation also, this point where there's this cycle. You go through life, you die, and then you return. There's
yes.
this kind of encoded in our mythology and in our experience of life. So,
Hmm.
okay, so we have these black holes, and that leads us to the galactic center and then the super-galactic center. And
Hmm.
so this galactic center happens to be at 28 degrees of
Hmm.
Sagittarius.
When
Uh,
you're returning, when the
yeah,
sun comes back and life is renewed. Yes, yeah, you get, it's like the cycle of birth and rebirth, death and rebirth. That's what it's telling us at 28 degrees before it goes to 0 degrees Capricorn, and we know the sun is coming back and the spring and things like that.
okay, so one of the great things about your talk is that you explore the different symbolisms that have been attached to Sagittarius from
Yes,
the very beginning with the Sumerians. And it might be nice to explore that a little bit with you now.
okay. The Papysag, yes. Babylonian I think Babylonian mythology really fascinates me because, yeah, obviously it developed out of Sumeria, which was 3,000, 4,000 years BCE, and probably even earlier than that. In some of the research I'm doing, especially about the Göbekli Tepe and the movement of people south. And I found this story, Papisag, who is the original, well, Sumerian's answer to um, Sagittarius, and how and then I looked at how it kind of developed into the Greek version of that constellation, which is Sagittarius, the archer. And he was a warrior king, but he's also connected to healing. And I thought, oh, okay, why is he a warrior king, but then develops into healing, or why is he connected with that in that area of the sky? And and then I found this connection with his consort, Ninhursag, who was a goddess of healing, and she was a major goddess in Sumeria. And there was a town where she had her temple and where people went to worship her. And because there was one theory that when Hammurabi became the king of Babylon, that he brought in a more kind of warrior warrior into that into Babylon, into Sumeria. So all of a sudden you had the male deities becoming more and more important. And Papisag, who was a kind of not a major deity at the time, but through his marriage to Ninhursag, he then became a major deity. And because she was connected to healing, he then got connected to healing, and their children became connected to healing. And that's why Papisag, and then going on to Sagittarius, all of a sudden got, and out of that we get the concept of Chiron, and Chiron being connected to the open moon and to healing. And it's all, and I tried to find a kind of road of ideas from the original Papisag developing into Sagittarius, Chiron, and healing. And that's the kind of path that I found from the Sumerian god Papisag. But essentially, he was the original Sagittarius, that original part. He was the constellation to that part of the sky. I've got a diagram of the Babylonian sky with all its concept and all their original names. And yes, Papisag is their idea of Sagittarius.
I think what I've always enjoyed is exploring the links between or the evolution of these myths.
Yeah.
And you've done it very beautifully here. And I think the reason I love it is because it's almost like you're watching a person, an individual, develop an idea and
Yeah.
and go places with that idea. Except we're not looking at an individual here. We're looking at our ancestors and how they began to develop and evolve different ideas as expressed through the mythologies. And one of the joys about the ancient world is that there was a blending of ideas coming in from different parts of the world because of conquest, etc. It wasn't just a static imposition from the conquerors onto the population. It was a blending that happened. So I think that was if we just forget the idea of conquest and we look at the result of the blending of the learning that went on, the exchange that went on between cultures, I think it's we benefit from that to this day, that it's there.
And I think we're just discovering it because, funny enough, you actually influenced the kernel of the idea. You came and gave a lecture at the lodge about the last three constellations in Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, and how they were attached to water. Do you remember that?
I do, yes.
That started me thinking, is there something there with especially, and then I looked at the work of a young lady called Elke Baumgart, who basically said the same thing as yourself. And she wrote a paper that can be read on a website called Academia. And she looked at that, and she actually said if you look at the constellations on the southern horizon, they are all connected to water. And if you go into the southern hemisphere, it's all boats and sea monsters, cetus, um, vela. It's all in the Southern Ocean. And I thought, well, that really kind of agrees with what you said at that lecture. And that really started getting me thinking on how we connect it with the stories from those constellations. And then that got me thinking of Anu, Enlil, and Enki, the division of the three skies in Babylonian law or Sumerian law, and how, Enki, Ea, is connected to water because of the southern horizon. So you can blame yourself for getting me on this path.
I feel quite honored, actually. It's yeah, I think every symbol bears close scrutiny
Mm.
because the more we explore that symbol and work with it, the deeper the meaning we derive from it. And it's making me think of Melanie Reinhardt and
Mm-hmm.
12 Holy Nights, where, you just spend one day for 12 days, one day with each sign, just around the time of Advent going through into Christmas, and how rich that is because you're thinking about the signs and you're looking at imagery and just seeing what comes up. And I think that may actually, even thinking about it, have added that was that germ of an idea. The talk I gave, it was called Water and the Thirst for Oneness. And
Yeah.
and I know that had been there in the back of my mind, bugging me for a few years before I actually did something. But I think it's that notion of just working with the symbol and seeing, what you learn. And I suspect that our ancestors did that more than we do, because the depth of the myths is huge, and of course open to interpretation, some of it darker than others, but it's a very interesting thing to do. So coming back then, here we have this galactic center at 28 degrees of Sagittarius, and I thought it was brilliant that you then started to explore the links between spirituality and that point of the zodiac. So tell us about that.
Ooh. Well, I just felt that, again, 28 degrees Sagittarius, going into 0 degrees Capricorn, and it really, I suppose it starts at 10 degrees Virgo, when you have that time when, as like we're going through now, where summer's over and you're going into really the dying of the world, to be renewed when it comes to 0 degrees Capricorn and the sun returns, and what you kind of, how you feel in those from 10 degrees Virgo to 28 degrees Sagittarius. And I thought they must be karmic points. They must be points where you do start reflecting on your journey, in life, in your journey. The universe is not static. Our galaxy is not static. M87, which is not static. The universe is moving. It seems to be on a journey. And then in the second lecture I gave, which was all about the Great Attractor, we're all kind of, due to gravity, we're all kind of moving towards the Great Attractor and then onwards from there. And I always see that we're all on a journey. The galaxy's on a journey. Us as a human species are on a journey, and not just as a collective, as humanity, but also as individuals and how we fit into that. And astrology to me kind of speaks that in volumes. And I think that's where I started to think that black holes, the Great Attractor, can tell us something about ourselves, not only as individuals, which we do when we do natal astrology, but also when we, as humanity, as a collective. And to me, that's what the 2 points started to tell me, that 28 degrees Sagittarius, 10 degrees of Virgo, are karmic points in the way that they tell us how we kind of, how we're journeying with the collective, with humanity. And that to me, why the black holes are so important with that pull, that gravitational pull. It's sucking us in, but we're never going to get sucked down a black hole. But we're still kind of affected by it. I mean, they do say black holes probably created galaxies. Well, that's another theory of mine anyway. But I think essentially what I was trying to say about these 2 points, it's karmic, is astrology tells us who we are as people. It's the natal story within the chart, but then what does it say about our what we bring to humanity? And I think 28 degrees Sag and 10 degrees Virgo and probably 15 degrees Sag, which is the Great Attractor, can tell the individual in their chart what they bring to humanity and what their journey is with humanity.
What do you feel is the distinct difference between them? So, three important, potentially karmic points.
Yeah.
And so, how would you distinguish what each of them means?
I think in the lectures, I kind of tried to say, and that is that black holes, because they suck everything in, it's like you're letting things go. You're letting things go down that black hole so you can move on. And I think that's both with 28 degrees Sagittarius, because what Philip Sedgwick says is once you let things go and you get in touch with a higher vibration, you can then move on and heal. And that's why I think 28 degrees Sagittarius to me got connected with healing, with the story of Sag, and then as it kind of transformed into Chiron. So to me, that's what 28 degrees Sag says, that is death and rebirth. And it's the same with 10 degrees Virgo. I think I was trying to say the same thing, but you're beginning that journey at 10 degrees Virgo when you're going down into the depths, find more about the spiritual side of yourself. And the Great Attractor, 15 degrees Sagittarius, which again I think is in the middle of Sagittarius, was to me telling, I think that degree, that symbol can show you, okay, you're part of this humanity, you're part of humanity, which is on this journey towards whatever goal we're going towards. And that point kind of tells you where you're going. Once you've done this fantastic journey of healing and finding out and letting go of something that is now no longer needed in your life, which I think is all about this part of the year anyway. The death of the year going on to the new year is all about reflection and moving on.
Just listening to you, it feels to me like, okay, so Virgo is harvest time.
Yes.
And it's perhaps about then, and it's also that mutable quality of analysis. And,
yeah.
you know, okay, so it's like a checking point. Okay, so how are we doing now? What have we learned so far? What have we learned so far? And I think part of bringing in the harvest is what you do with that harvest, because you're not going to eat everything. You have to process some of it. You have to share it. You have to, and you know, I speak as a gardener. This is the time of year where I am, you know, making all sorts. There's loads of apple chutneys and all sorts of things to make use of the of it, and how much am I going to freeze, and what am I going to do with the excess? How can I share that with others? And then there's the ground that needs to be cleared and prepared for the next cycle, and looking at what can I put into the ground now, that is going to be ready for the spring. So this is the classic time for planting bulbs, for instance, daffodils, tulips around November time, and onions, garlic, broad beans. They all go in now, ready
Yeah.
for spring. So we're always thinking ahead. And I think, if there is that, for me, Virgo, in this time of year, it's where autumn and spring meet in a way, because yes, it's autumn, and yes, it's the harvest. And I'm speaking about Virgo. It's the harvest, but within that harvest lie the seeds of what's to come.
Yes.
And I think when you were talking about it being linked with this point of incarnation, and
Yeah.
the beginning of something new, it's not what you would associate with Virgo as a harvest, unless you understand that from an agricultural perspective, that
Yeah.
harvest holds the seeds of the new. It is the time for collecting seeds too. It's
Yes.
so when you harvest, you collect your seed. That's what you do.
Yeah.
So so I think that that's a very interesting thing. And then to think again, going into, these are two mutable signs we're talking about.
Yes. It's all
So
about change and moving on.
yeah,
Yes.
and the analysis that goes with it. So
Mm.
there's that 15 degrees Sagittarius, and as you say, right, we're now on this boat, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
sailing and collect. Now we've got, before we go on any journey, what do we have to do? We have to pack. And I
Yeah.
think that that's
Take what you need with you. Yeah.
yeah, what food are you storing? What are you going to put into this boat? So what are your resources? And then now that you've got your resources about you and other people with you, because as you were
Mm.
saying, this is connected with the myth of Jason and the Golden Fleece, and they
Yeah.
were going off on the Argonauts together, all the great heroes. That's
Yeah.
the quest. So now we're actually on the quest.
Mm.
And then we're coming to the end of the quest, perhaps having to shed some things, 28 degrees Sagittarius. And here's the bit that connects with the water, as you were talking about it, because I feel that that end of the zodiac is the preparation to return again to the one, and to
Yeah.
become all one again. So I think it's very beautiful, and I love the symbolism attached to these three great points. And I think what you're highlighting is that when we're looking at astrology,
Mm.
beyond the psychological character analysis, beyond the transits, beyond the prediction and the divination that we associate with traditional horary astrology, there is something else going on, and that is the journey of the soul. And I just love that.
Totally agree. Astrology always has been for me something very spiritual and a journey that we all take. And it connects us to the universe, which is also on a journey. I've always seen astrology in that regard. And talking about the oneness, now this is where to me science kind of just hasn't got it. Because when they talk about infinity and the singularity at the bottom of the black hole well, or the singularity at the beginning of time, that's when we were all one. And all life and the universe, our sun and everything came from that point. And to me, that's what we're striving to get back to, that oneness at the beginning of time and at the bottom of the black hole.
Absolutely. We have been very conveniently putting this into a sort of chronological story.
Yeah.
And yet we know that time in itself is a construct. And
Yeah.
so this is something that helps us make sense in a language and in a conceptual way that makes sense to our experience here. But these are massive points of exploration that go
Mm.
well beyond our comprehension on this particular dimension. So,
Mm.
Gill, what fabulous work. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I mean, it also adds the fact that I think that's what astrology does for me. It explores these things where maybe if we jump in where, you know, people don't want to tread. To me, that's what astrology does. It helps me explore these mysteries and these things that science, where science doesn't want to go, really.
And where many astrologers don't want to go. And when you consider our ancestors looking at that mass of dark with these points of light on it,
Yeah.
without telescopes,
Hmm.
you're doing exactly what they did. You're asking questions. The fact that you can see deeper into the galaxy with the aid of technology and the astronomical information that you have available, it's just the modern version of what those Babylonians and Sumerians were doing all that time ago.
And I think even before that, I mean, if you look at Nabta Playa in Western Sahara, that which is the stone circle, Nick Hampton mentions it in his book, and that got me set. You know, when I read that, it set me off on looking into what that meant. And Göbekli Tepe, they all say they were observing the sky, they were observing the precession of the equinoxes. Joseph Campbell, in one of my favourite all-time books, The Inner Reaches of Outer Space, you know, he said the Sumerians knew about the precession of the equinoxes. So to me, they were exploring these concepts even back then. And we kind of lost our way, I think, after Isaac Newton.
I think that might be a slight understatement. Um, but, but yes, just that looking up and asking the questions, noticing the patterns, the mythology that is around it, the symbolism that is around it. I think that that's something that we are doing to this day. And you certainly are carrying on in that very beautiful tradition. Thank you
Yeah.
again. And thank you for your time today.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, if people want to find out more about your work and by the most excellent series that we have been discussing, which is called The Cosmos and Astrology, through the Astrological Lodge of London. How do they do that? How do they do both things?
Right. At the moment, I'm trying to put it all together in a book. So watch that space on this one. Sorry about that. But at the moment, if you want to buy the series of lectures, there's at the moment you need to go on to www.astrology.co.uk, go to the donation page and make a donation of £6, and then our treasurer will contact you, or you can email either myself, Vice President at astrology.co.uk, and say you're purchasing the series of lectures, and then I'll get them sent to you by email. And then hopefully in the new year, it will be all on our membership area, or on the front page, we'll have a shopping area where you can go in and not only buy my series of lectures, but other lectures that we have at the lodge as well, and our previous quarterlies. We're going to have a shopping area on there. So it's
Perfect.
exciting times for our website at the moment.
Yes, because the wealth of material that has been collected at the lodge is just wonderful. So people really do need to have access to that.
Yeah.
But the other thing, of course, they can do is go to the website and become members.
Yes,
and join the lectures on Monday nights. Is it 7 o'clock, Jill?
yeah, at the moment, yeah, it's 7 o'clock on a Monday night in term time. We have a series of lectures. We've got the program on there as well. So go through all the, go through our program. We've got some exciting lectures coming up, including on the 2nd of December, our famous Bernard Eccles, he gives his predictions for 2025, which looks an exciting year astrologically. So that will be that's going to be a very interesting evening.
And of course, a reminder that many of those lectures are held online. So it doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to be physically present. It's not all of them. Some of them, are in London in a physical building, but many are also online. And that means that no matter where you are, you can join. And for those who are in North America, take heart, because 7 p.m. Is still daytime for you. But if you are indeed working, that's where the recordings come in and the beautiful library comes in. Now, Jill, what about a website for you? Is there one?
Not at the moment, but again, it's something I'm working on. Yes, I'm trying
All
to.
right.
I'm finishing a novel at the moment, which I'm going to be sending off in a few weeks, and then I've started already collating all my material that I've had from my cosmos and astrology and the work I did before, and I'm collating that together as well for a book. And maybe what I'll do is I'll build a website and put it on the website. I think that might be probably a good idea.
Fantastic. I think we'll need to know when that website is up and running. Wonderful.
It's already got a name. It's called Starman and Navigator.
I love it. Very appropriate for a Sagittarius.
Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you once again. And thank you all for watching. Next time, we're going to be looking at birthdays. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.